All these churches got one thing in common. All of them got one thing in common, that the more they embrace this one thing, the more it's plummeted in their actual membership, which is fascinating.
Ruslan.
A super dope creator I think you guys should check out is ReadyToHarvest. And he does some interesting breakdowns of where the church is today, okay? And what the demographics are and what's actually happened versus what they want you to think has happened.
Churches are on the decline. The Atlantic, November 25, 2018. America's epidemic of empty churches. Religious communities often face a choice: sell off the buildings they can no longer afford or find a way to fill them with new uses. Factsandtrends.net, January 16, 2018. Hope for dying churches. Occult website Ancient Origins, November 19, 2018. Rapidly closing American churches are shadowed by the meteoric rise in witchcraft. What's happening? Are churches as a whole declining in America? The truth is found in two additional bits of information. Yes, thousands of churches in America are closing each year, but additionally, thousands of new churches are opening. And maybe the most important bit of information is that the main source of closing churches is the theologically liberal mainline churches.
So I think there's a whole lot here. One, people leave out all of the new churches that are getting planted all the time, okay? So for context, I know Pastor Jeff Morris, who planted Rhythm Church in Oceanside not too long ago. We just had Pastor Mike Signorelli on, who pastors the fastest growing church in New York City, of all places, with multi-sites. That is huge, right? And so there's always new churches being planted. And I think when people say the church is dying, millennials are leaving God, they're missing all of the churches that are being planted and all of the movements that are happening and exploding in real time. And where the attendance drop-off actually is in the liberal churches, believe it or not. And so he's going to go through and kind of explain this to us.
While evangelical churches are either declining slower, holding steady, or increasing in membership. Let's take a look at what have been called the seven sisters of mainline Protestant Christianity. First, the United Methodist.
So Protestant Christianity. What is Protestant Christianity? Okay, so remember the Protestant Reformation happened. Okay, Protestant Reformation, okay, about 500 years ago. I'm just using rough numbers. Martin Luther splits from the Catholic Church. He says, hey, I want to reform it. They was like, Luther splits, and that is where the Protestant Reformation happens, okay? It was bloody. It was a lot of bad stuff. And so everyone that basically is not a Catholic, is not an Eastern Orthodox or an Oriental Orthodox, it comes out of the Protestant arm. Okay, and there's a lot of different arms of the Protestant church. So he's going to go over the main ones. Okay, check this out.
The 2000 membership was 8,340,954.
So this is the United Methodist Church. In 2000, their membership was 8 million.
2000, a decrease since 2000 of 16.66%. Then we have American Baptist Churches USA. Their membership in 2000 was 1,436,909. Since 2000, they are down at 19.31%. The Episcopal Church began 2000 with 2,333,327 members.
He's going to cover what we're going to talk about. And all these churches got one thing in common. All of them got one thing in common, that the more they embrace this one thing, the more it's plummeted in their actual membership, which is fascinating. Let's keep going.
Since 2000, they have decreased by 1/4, 25.21%. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America was at 5,125,919 members in 2000. Since 2000, that is a 30.47% decline. Then the United Church of Christ. In 2000, there were 1,377,320 members. They are down 36.08% since 2000. Next, the Presbyterian Church USA. In 2000, they had 2,525,330 members. Since 2000, they've declined 41.28%.
Presbyterian Church declined 41% in the last 16 years, probably more than that now. Okay.
Finally, Christian Churches Disciples of Christ. In 2000, they had 820,286 members. Since 2000, they've declined by 49.88%. So why are mainline churches declining, and some more than others? Mainline churches were already deep into theological liberalism in the 1920s and 30s, but they continued to grow until the 1960s. However, once the generation that had fought against the fundamentalists began to die, there weren't people in the pews to replace them.
Isn't that funny? So in their attempt to fight against a fundamentalist, okay, that generation who was fighting was gone, and then there wasn't another generation. They're not new generations to replace them. And so they slowly started dying, okay? And he's going to get into very particular reasons why.
The next generation of that crowd generally went one step further and quit church and religion altogether. And the mainline churches had already abandoned evangelism, at least within the United States. Mark Tooley, president of the Institute on Religion and Democracy, said this on the subject. The leftward drift of mainline Protestantism, typically disguised behind vaguely phrased sermons that utilized orthodox language with often very unorthodox meanings, was largely undetected by most actual mainline Protestant churchgoers, who were uninformed about the machinations of distant seminaries and church agencies operating in their name and with their financial backing.
It was something interesting about this quote as he said, typically disguised behind vaguely phrased sermons that utilize, catch this, orthodox language with often very unorthodox meanings. Okay, so orthodox language that sounds Christian, that we're referencing scripture, we're talking about stories from the Bible, but these aren't. This isn't. It's unorthodox. It's outside the lines of orthodoxy.
So the mainline has continued on its adoctrinal moralistic march, following the social winds wherever they lead. In 2013, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ endorsed homosexual clergy, marking a point in their steady advance away from orthodox Christian teaching on sex.
By the way, not just affirming of clergy. Yeah, buddy. Affirming of clergy, meaning the guys leading the church.
In 2014, the Presbyterian Church USA changed their official definition of marriage, adding to it allowance of the ordination of non-celibate homosexuals in 2010. In 2009, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America voted to allow non-celibate homosexual ministers to be ordained and elected an openly gay bishop in 2013. Way back in 1985, the United Church of Christ had passed a resolution titled Calling on United Church of Christ Congregations to Declare Themselves Open and Affirming. And in 2005, the General Synod asked UCC churches...
By the way, that language was used in 1985, open and affirming.
...consider not considering individuals' gender in performing weddings. The Episcopal Church appointed an openly gay bishop in 2003, and in 2015, the church canons were updated to change their stance on marriage to allow same-sex marriages. American Baptist churches officially view homosexuality as incompatible with biblical teaching, and since 1972, the United Methodist Church has had an official position on homosexuality that states that homosexual practice is against Christian teaching. However, this might be changed in 2019, as this denomination is also...
So only two of those arms still hold to that theologically, but he's saying that's about to change too.
Moving more theologically liberal. So what about denominations that not only are officially opposed to homosexuality, but have smaller numbers of theological liberals? The second largest Presbyterian denomination in the United States, the Presbyterian Church in America, had 306,156 members in 2000. They grew 8.7% by 2008 to 335,850, and in 2016 they were at 374,161, an 11% increase since 2008 and a 22% increase since 2000. Assemblies of God USA was at 1,637,665 members in 2000, up 9.91% to 1,799,987 by 2008.
So by the way, these are now Christian churches that don't affirm this, okay? And from what he's showing, their numbers are on the incline. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? And there's one where the numbers go down, but it's actually very obvious why the numbers went down. And then there's also the elephant in the room of non-denominational churches, which don't have a unified denomination, obviously because they're non-denominational, that you can't track. How do you track Jeff Moore's church that started and my buddy Benji's church that started and Blueprint Church that just planted another church in Atlanta? How do you track that? Because they're not under any one specific umbrella. It's harder to track those numbers.
And up 11% to 2,004,897 in 2016, a 22.42% increase since 2000. The Southern Baptist Convention had 15,900,000 members in 2000, up 2% to 16,228,438 by 2008, and down 6.23% to 15,216,978 by 2016.
Now, I know why this is. We've done multiple videos about this. The Southern Baptists had a huge issue with clergy and SA, and they basically covered it up. They had a list of 700 practicing people that they would just shift around from different churches, and there was a massive whistleblower on this whole thing. And so that's why I think their decline is that yes, I would say they're within orthodoxy, but they went all the way with just the scandals and very similar to what happened with the Catholic Church in the early 2000s of just covering up just really dark stuff, and all that stuff just came to light, and the new president's exposing it, and they're trying to make it right now. And so yeah, it's that stuff is pretty
down
dark.
4.3% since 2000. As for Episcopalians, a new denomination formed called the Anglican Church in North America in 2009 due to the trends in the Episcopal Church, and they have 134,593 members as of 2018. The Evangelical Free Church of America has seen an increase from 2003, when they had 300,000 members, to 2014, when they reported 371,191 members, a 23% increase. Non-denominational churches are hard to track, but in 2010, they
Right, which is what I just said.
represented the third largest block of Christianity in the USA, behind Roman Catholics and Southern Baptists. Most non-denominational churches are evangelical in flavor, considering homosexuality to be sinful, and they are a growing segment of U.S. Christianity. Joseph Rossell, a writer for the Institute on Religion and Democracy, mined 7 concise statements about the state of mainline Protestantism from the book The Triumph of Faith by Rodney Stark, and here they are. Number 1, Protestantism is as strong as ever in America. Only the names have changed. Number 2, not many years ago, a select set of American denominations was always referred to as the Protestant mainline. Today, that designation, though still commonly used, is out of date. The old mainline has rapidly faded to the religious periphery, a trend that was first noticed more than 40 years ago. Number 3, some religious institutions, but not all, fail to keep the faith. In an unconstrained religious marketplace, secularization is a self-limiting process. As some churches become secularized and decline, they are replaced by churches that continue to offer a vigorous religious message. In effect, the old Protestant mainline denominations drove millions of their members into the more conservative denominations. Number 4.
They did it to themselves, guys, because people were sober enough to look around and go, hey, this don't look like Christianity no more. We don't look much different than the world. We just doing right. Like, we're just affirming the same things. You could go to church and, be whatever you want to be, sleep with whoever you want to sleep with, right? And there was no guidelines. And so that's why we saw such a huge decline in the mainline churches. And now we're, outside of, in America, now you have the Southern Baptists and you have the Southern Baptists and non-denominational as the biggest Protestant churches in America.
The wreckage of the former mainline denominations is strewn upon the shoal of a modernist theology that began to dominate the mainline seminaries early in the 19th century. This theology presumed that advances in human knowledge had made faith outmoded. Eventually, mainline theologians discarded nearly every doctrinal aspect of traditional Christianity. Number 5.
Well, that's a big womp womp.
Aware that most members reject their radical political views, the mainline clergy claim it is their right and duty to instruct the faithful in more sophisticated and enlightened religious and political views. So every year, thousands of members claim their right to leave. And of course, in the competitive American religious marketplace, there are many appealing alternatives available. Number 6. Even though so many have left, most of the people remaining in the former mainline pews still regard the traditional tenets of Christianity as central to their faith. As a result, the exodus continues. And number 7, many liberals have attempted to make a virtue of the mainline decline, claiming that the contrasting trends reflect the superior moral worth of the mainline. Meanwhile, the mainline shrinks and conservative churches grow. So the mainline is declining, and evangelicalism isn't yet, but it could be next. Mark Tooley said in 2015, meanwhile, evangelical liberals, as they have increasingly replicated the mainline Protestant experience, seem oblivious or indifferent to the mainline implosion and its causes.
By the way, this is now the modern deconstruction progressive Christianity movement. Evangelical liberals. Okay, so these are the folks that, is the Bible really authoritative? Right? Do we have to be exclusive? But Jesus is the only way, right? Is it really marriage for one man, one woman, right? Do you really shouldn't sleep with your girlfriend, right? This is who this is talking about. This is the progressive church today.
The evangelical left has become increasingly bold in departing from evangelical and Christian orthodoxy on sexual issues. Obama's endorsement of same-sex marriage effectively gave permission or provided retroactive political cover for some professing to be evangelical to follow suit. Mainline Protestants have declined.
It's interesting he mentions Obama because, guys, I don't know if you guys know this. Obama was anti same-sex marriage back in the day. I mean, Obama had a panel at Rick Warren's church and was like an evangelical at one point, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? Like hanging out with Rick Warren and all these guys. So that's wild that, he switched teams at one point.
For decades, yet survive, however diminished, because they have had 350 years of history and often generous endowments with extensive institutional networks. Evangelicalism is mostly a modern American phenomenon, and for better or worse, lacks mainline ballast. Liberal post-evangelicals likely will not endure for many decades, unlike liberal Presbyterians and Congregationalists. But before their demise, liberalizing egalitarian post-evangelicals may wreak a lot of damage in the church, mislead a lot of people, inflict spiritual harm in society, and portray a disfigured face of Christianity to the world far more erroneous than any of the mistakes of old-style rambunctious conservative evangelicals. For this reason, we are all called to avoid the passivity and silence of Orthodox mainline Protestants 80 and 90 years ago who were mostly too polite to resist the subversion of their venerable church institutions.
W. That's a W for Ready to Harvest. Why does the past keep recreating himself? Why can't we learn from our previous mistakes? Why can't we learn from our past mistakes? Like we just saw the biggest denominations, they're all dying. The biggest Protestant denominations are all dying. Guess who's not? Right?
Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.